Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Saturday Shoutouts in the Thrive Tribe. Super excited to have a new friend to me. We just met, I guess last month. We just met last month in a Pausing for Purpose, and we connected. Super fabulous woman. And so I'd like to welcome Chelsea Zent to the Thrive Tribe show. Woohoo! So Chelsea, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I am a 7th grade language arts teacher at junior high here in Bakersfield. And first and foremost, I'm a mom, and I have an almost 14-year-old child, and she's the light of my life. And I'm a writer, and I consider myself an artist. I dabble in the arts. So I'm a theater person. I have a degree in theater and in English, and I really am passionate about supporting the arts in my community, and I like to document what's going on in my community as far as artists and artwork, and I'm an avid reader. I love to travel, and I document my travels, and I'm also very passionate about my teaching career. So that is what I do.
Nice. Well, you got exposed to the arts at a young age, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, my mom is a painter, and she took me with her from the time I was a baby when she was taking art classes at the college, and I would sit with her and just do whatever they were doing in class. And I remember that very well. And my whole family are artists, and my father owned a theater here called the Melodrama, so I grew up in the theater. My grandma, she was the organist at a local Catholic church here for dozens and dozens of years, and she taught me about music. And so I just come from a family and a community of artists.
That's fun. And you sing.
Yes, I sing.
You are learning to play the guitar.
Yes.
You're an actress, and
yes,
you
I dance.
Very arty Instagram pictures. I know that for sure. Which of those brings you the most joy?
Probably just what I do right now. I like to share what's going on in the world with my community. I take pictures every single day of just kind of like little moments that inspire me, and that really makes me happy. I like to just find little, I guess, like you say, moments of awe, and capture those and share them with my community and people that I love, and hopefully share that awe and that joy with the people around me in my life. Nice. That's what I like.
Well, and I think other people appreciate your artsy. I know I do. Let's talk about work for a second. So school just started. You went back to school.
Yes.
What are some things that you've noticed since you first started teaching to now? Have there been any big shifts? What are the big shifts, and what are the big consistencies kind of that you see when you start a new year every year?
Well, a huge shift this year on the campus where I am right now is that social emotional learning is very important. And I think that is going to change the way that kids grow and learn. And I'm really excited about that future for them. I think it's a really big change that needs to happen for the future of our country, for the world that we live in right now. And that's something that hasn't been focused on in education for a long time. And when I started teaching almost 15 years ago, everything was data-driven, test scores, and then Common Core came along, and it was more data and more test scores. And that stuff is important, yes. Marking where a child was, where they are, projecting where they're going, that is important, but understanding the social and emotional needs of a child comes first. and helping the child understand those things about themselves. And the theme of our campus right now is, what is your why? And teaching a child how to articulate that is a really powerful tool for them, something that is going to be a tool for their life, for the rest of their life. So that's awesome.
So how are you incorporating that? Of course, I love that because I'm all about purpose.
Yes.
Purpose, not purpose. And knowing your why. How is that being incorporated? Is it with students and staff, with just students?
Yes.
What does that look like at your school?
Well, we now have advisory, and that is 15 minutes per day. And I teach 7th graders, so I have an 8th grade advisory class. And the teachers who teach 8th graders have 7th grade advisories, and they'll loop. So the kids will be with the same advisors. And I think that's wonderful. I've taught on campuses where we've had advisory classes before, and the way that our campus is doing it now, it's going to be more structured than in the past when I've been involved, and I'm really excited about what they're doing. And we all have, what is your why in our classrooms? Well, at least I have it in my classroom right now, but I've seen other teachers have it up. It's in our staff lounge. We've been sent just some things that our vice principal has put together, and we have a committee, an advisory committee, and I'm on that committee. And we're all doing, we have planners for the students. Every student is using it. Every staff member is using it with their students. So it's very structured. And I think that that's really, really important, that we're all doing the same thing with all of the students on campus, and every teacher is participating. Every staff member, not just the teachers, but every staff member.
And so are the staff members also doing things to explore their why?
We did. Our very first meeting, we went through sort of a mini version of the training that our principal and vice principal went to, and they gave us some literature on social emotional learning, talked to us about how that really improves every aspect of the child's life, and just things that we've learned in pausing with purpose on a miniature scale. So I was so excited to hear about that. I jumped on. Anybody else want to be on the advisory committee? I was like, me, me, put me on there. Yeah.
So do you find that the topic of resilience, as well as social emotional learning, comes up, resilience and trauma-informed practices as well?
I'm sorry, so could you repeat that?
Do you find that in addition to social emotional learning, is there a lot of talk around trauma-informed practices and kids becoming resilient?
Okay, that is something that needs to happen more. Yeah, I do talk to my students about that, but I think that that language needs that. I think staff members need to be trained in that, and how to talk to students about that. I show my students, for the last few years, I've shown my students a short video called Famous Failures, and it's about resiliency. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It's a very short video, but it shows probably a dozen of some of the most famous, successful people in the history of the world. But before that, it just gives a few sentences about what happened to them as a trauma in their life. For instance, Thomas Edison was told by a teacher that he was stupid. I mean, as a child to hear, you are stupid and you're never going to amount to anything in your life, that is traumatic. And so, and then it shows a picture of him that he invented the incandescent light bulb, which is one of the most successful inventions ever. And so, but when they read that, a teacher told him he was stupid, the look on their faces is like, oh my gosh, they can't believe that a child would hear that from a teacher. And then they see that Thomas Edison was told that by a teacher. And then after that place, I actually talked to them about that. Can you imagine what that would feel like if somebody said that to you, if the teacher said that to you? And they verbalize, yes, I would be traumatized by that. And then we talk about what would you do if that happened to you? And how would you, and I actually use the language that you gave, how would you pause? How would you use that as a stepping stone to the success in your life? Because that your failures make you who you are, who you're going to be.
You know, it's interesting when you were talking, something popped into my head, and I don't know why I've never kind of put this exact thing together before, but we often talk, I just did an interview with Dr. Doty, and he was talking about this one woman making such a shift in his life, right? And that sometimes it's one person. And actually for him, there was a guy that came in third grade and you know, on career day, who was a doctor. And that made such an impression that he went. So there's those two people with profound, tiny periods in his life. But in the same respect, we often don't think that one adult doing a really negative thing, saying you're stupid, that, you know, we might go, oh, that's just said in passing. But just like having the power of having someone believe in you, the power of having someone not believe in you is profound. And I think if we start paying more attention to that, maybe people will be more mindful of the things that come out of their mouth, I hope.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Sorry, that was just a little aha moment. Okay, so speaking of trauma, so you went through, the whole nation went through a trauma with 9/11, but you have a personal story, very personal, because you were there. Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so in the year 2000, I had a lot of changes happen in my life. I graduated from college, and then I moved to New York City with my fiance, my then fiance, who became the father of my child. We decided, after much, much thought and consideration, to take an apartment in downtown Manhattan. And we considered very, very carefully the location because of an incident that happened in that area. And it was the bombing in the basement of the World Trade Center. And our apartment that we lived in, that we decided to move into, was across the street from the World Trade Center at 15 Park Row, a beautiful landmark building. It was the world's tallest building until 1911, and then the Woolworth building that was just sort of down a little bit further and across the street was built. And that became the world's tallest building until the Empire State Building was built. But we decided that we wanted to live there, and we were very, very happy there. And we moved in, and then we got married in August, actually, the month before 9/11, almost exact. August 12th is when we got married. And we went to Europe for a couple of weeks, and then we came back, and I started a brand new job the week before. And the week before September 11th, I started my brand new job. And so September 11th was my first payday. And that morning, I woke up to go to work, and my then husband said to me, "You can't go to work today. Please don't go to work today. I had a terrible, terrible dream. Something really bad is going to happen. I don't know what it is. I just had a horrible dream. Please don't go." And I said, "I really have to go. It's my first payday." And we had just spent the evening at the World Trade Center the night before, Monday night. We went window shopping. We had a list of things that we needed for our apartment, just things that we wanted to buy with my first paycheck. You know how young people are. And we were going to go back that night and go shopping and purchase things on the list. So I told him I had to go, and he said, okay, he understood. I had to get my paycheck. I didn't have direct deposit yet. It was my first paycheck. So I got ready. I went to work. Another important thing to know is that that was the first day of school, and the subway area, it was usually very, very crowded, and that day it was not. It was strangely not crowded that day. And I asked somebody, where is everyone? And somebody said, oh, it's the first day of school. A lot of people are taking their kids to school. And I said, oh, that's good. Because people do that. So I got on the train and I went to work. And then I got off the train and I went up the stairs to my office, and I started up the stairs, and the secretary came running down, and she said, Chelsea, your husband's on the phone. Something's going on at the World Trade Center. And my first thought was, there's another bomb in the basement there. And I said, okay, get him on the phone again. And he wasn't on the phone anymore. And so I called him right back, and he said there was an earthquake, or you didn't know what. It was just this huge noise, and there was a lot of confusion, and he looked out the window and he really couldn't see much right now. And then he was going to go downstairs and check it out. So we got off the phone, he went downstairs, and he got back on the phone with me when he got downstairs, and then that's when the second plane hit. And it wasn't real. It wasn't real at all. It was very detached. I almost didn't have any emotion because it was so unbelievable. I couldn't see anything. We didn't have a television in the office. There was no internet to see what was happening in real time. He was just describing for me, and I could hear the things, but it was just, there'd never been anything like it in the history of the world. So he said he didn't know what to do, and he was a film student. So my first thought was that he was a film student at NYU. My first thought was that he was going to go upstairs and get his camera and film what was going on. That's what I was terrified of, that he was going to get off the phone with me and film it. And he didn't do that, but that's what was in my mind the whole day. So he got off the phone with me, and that's the last I heard from him for like 6 hours. I didn't hear from him the rest of the day for many, many hours. And it's really hard for me to still, even when I talk about it, it's really hard for me to identify with emotions because I felt like a robot going through the rest of my day because I was looking for him all day long. I called friends downtown that lived in that area, and I was asking them, please, can you find him? Just like every other single person that was looking for their loved one. And I'm sure that when I finally talked to other people that went through those experiences, because I've never talked to anyone really about my experience. I have never connected with any other survivors. And that's like part of what I'm going through right now. Like I'm going to go through that process really soon, and I'm ready to go through that process finally. I'll be able to connect with other people who know what I feel like when that was happening to me. So yeah, I'm still working out how to articulate that.
I can't even imagine. I mean, I think everybody remembers that day vividly in their head. I happened to be watching it on TV live because I had East Coast channel. And so I was up at 5 in the morning and saw the whole thing happen. I can't even imagine both what you're talking about on that day, but even the aftermath, the months following. And so, can you tell us, like, what were, obviously extremely traumatic and horrible, but what were some of the good things that you saw people do in response, to come together, or, to just help each other be resilient?
Well, the one thing that really did help me personally, living down there, as soon as we could get down there, I volunteered. I went with, I don't even know where it was. There were different command centers where you could go if you wanted to volunteer, and I just made food for people. I would go down there and there were assembly lines, and you could make food for all of the people working down there. And that's what I did whenever I had the time to do it. And that was one thing that, like, quelled the anxiety of being down there, the time that I had to spend down there, because we couldn't get into our apartment for 3 weeks. And then when we finally were able to get into it and clean it, we had to stay there because we had nowhere else to go until we moved. And that whole process took 2 months from that time until we were fully moved out. So there were a lot of people helping people. People just came and helped. But that was lovely. But it was hard. It was chaotic, and it was a mess down there.
Yeah. And you're going back there for the first time this year, right?
Yeah, I've been back before, so it's not like I haven't been back, but I haven't been back specifically to address this issue and to just celebrate the fact that we lived through this and record my story at the memorial. And I registered with the memorial for the first time, and I'm really I feel now that I'm healing, and that I am ready to start figuring out how to talk about it more than just to my family and friends, that it's time to just kind of take a step forward from it. So it's going to be really good. I'll go to the very first time for the very first time to the memorial and to the memorial service on the anniversary. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. I really appreciate you trusting us to tell us that story, and a story of fear and anxiety and sadness and resilience, and people doing good things. I think about kids, just to relate it even today, in California, where a lot of Thrive Tribers are. We have a lot of people outside of California, but actually there's disasters everywhere, but in California in particular, lots of fires and mudslides in this past year, where people are displaced from their homes. And I'm just wondering how often we have kids come back to school and we're like, okay, chop chop, let's get to work, when there's just so much going on that hasn't been dealt with yet. And it seems like you're sharing your story may help others open their eyes who haven't thought of it that way before.
Yeah. One amazing thing that happened was when the day after, on September 12th, we had no clothes. We had nothing, the clothes on our backs. And we stopped at the Gap to get some things to wear. And they gave us, like, just gave us clothes. They were so kind. Yeah, it was very, very kind of them, because we had nothing, no, not even underwear.
Wow. I can't imagine, but I'm anxious to hear your story. And I think there's a StoryCorps app, right? I think that we'll explore that a little bit more. We'll have to. Let's move on to some of my little wacky questions. Let's see. What is one object that you have in your house? I know I have several, but one object that you're a little bit embarrassed about owning. Maybe it's just a little indulgent, or just, just you're like, yeah, I have this.
Embarrassed?
I don't know.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to think about that one for a second.
Okay.
Oh, maybe like 18 bottles of wine? I don't know.
I don't think that's anything to be embarrassed about. That's a good thing. Okay. You had talked about in Pausing with Purpose, we did a whole section on building character strengths, and you had let me know that you're going to be a strengths ambassador, a character day ambassador, right? For the first time. And I'm going to put the link in the comments for this, because I'd like you all to do this. It's September 26th, I think.
26th. Mm-hmm.
26th. And so I want to ask you, what are your character strengths? What are your top character strengths?
What are my top character strengths? Well, oh gosh, I took the test.
You don't have to say what's on the test, just in general. What are your top strengths? What do you bring to the table?
Well, love of learning, definitely. I kind of fought that one, but it's true. Definitely love of learning, and compassion.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I love it. One of the things that we also did in Pausing with Purpose is did a little heartbreak mapping. And we thought about things that, kind of break our hearts, that might tap into our passion. So if you won, I don't know, $10 million today, but part of the stipulation for that 10 million was that you needed to open a nonprofit or something.
Okay.
What would be your heartbreak, your cause that you would want to open a foundation to help, or an organization?
Well, the women who we met in my Pausing with Purpose group, they really made a huge impression on me, and I've always been very interested in the work that they do with, especially the human trafficking. And so that's something that I do think about a lot. I've met a few students in my time with teaching that have been victims and survivors of that. And I think that work that people do to save those lives and to help those survivors and change those lives is really important work. And I have friends here in town that work with V-Day, and that organization does a lot of work to help those people too. So I think that I would want to set up a foundation or contribute to foundations that do work to help those people.
Yeah, human trafficking. I need to have them on the Thrive Tribe shout out. That'll be coming
Yes.
soon. Coming soon. I've already reached out. Let's see. One of the things that you wrote about on my little questionnaire about passion and purpose is that you really want kids to know how to adapt. Why is that so important, do you think?
Life throws things at you, curveballs all the time, daily. And I think adaptability is how you survive and how you succeed. So it's really important to be able to adapt just on a day-to-day basis and be flexible. And that's something that makes you stronger as a human being. And so I think that even the youngest kids can learn how to do that. And that's an important life skill.
Yeah, because there's lots of adults who struggle with that.
Yeah. Myself included sometimes.
Me too.
Yeah.
If you were to describe yourself as a fruit, what fruit do you think represents Chelsea?
That's an interesting question. I would have to say a star fruit.
Wow. I like it. Starfish.
Yeah.
Okay. They may not know what that is. So for the rest of you, power posing is I'll put links in the thing so you can see the videos, but it's really just about how we hold our body can help shift our mind and help us be more resilient and successful. It's a great mindset. I love it so much. I see I have a starfish. Right? Okay, so this question I ask everyone. Don't overthink, just kind of say, I think I would answer this question perhaps differently on some days than others, but if you could teach the world just one thing, what would you want them to know from you?
If I could tell the world just one thing?
You could teach the world.
Teach the world.
Mm-hmm.
If I could teach the world, I'd like to teach the world to sing. Perfect harmony. Okay, if I could teach the world one thing from me, let's see. I think that I would teach the world that having an attitude of gratitude is very important. Just to wake up every day with that attitude of gratitude right here and remember that and try to remember that in every interaction with every human being. And that will really set the tone for your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
When life hands you those things, right, as it does, if we can focus on all the things that are still, that we're grateful for, even things like lights and
air, water.
So now you get to ask me one question.
Okay.
Trying to prepare myself.
Let me find it. I wrote it down. Give me a second.
You wrote it down. It seems like it might be a scary question.
Oh, no, it's not. Okay. So I was reading something that you wrote the other day, and you said, nourish to flourish is so important. I wrote my whole doctoral thesis on it. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know what pushed you in that direction originally? Was that always going to be your doctoral thesis, or what spurred you in that direction?
That's a great question. So actually, I wanted to do it on student stress. Was my initial thought. Mm-hmm. And on day one, when we were at USC and we're sitting around these tables and they're like, tell us your thoughts. And I said mine. They're like, oh, you don't want to do anything with kids because the permission is so hard to get approval for a study. And I'm like, oh. And so I'm like, well, teachers are super stressed out. So I shifted to kind of teacher stress. And I worked on that. I wrote one paper on teacher stress.
Sounds really stressful.
I was like, yeah. And that's exactly it. I kind of thought, we all know teachers are stressed. Like for me to write a dissertation on teachers being stressed seems pointless. And so I'm a big fan of positive psychology and have been for many, many years. And so I thought, well, instead of writing about teacher stress, let's write about teacher well-being. Mm. And so what makes teachers feel good? What makes them resilient? What makes them engaged? What makes them love their job? What makes them be effective with kids? And so I created 2 courses. One was called Breathtaking, very similar to Pausing with Purpose, and one was called SEL 2.0, and they were both multi-session courses. One designed really for educators just on a personal level, and the other designed with the same themes, but how you could then take it into the classroom. And I was pretty confident that it would boost well-being. I had seen that, so that happened, and that didn't shock me. But what really shocked me is the correlation between well-being and employee engagement. So
Yeah.
people that went through these courses didn't just feel better and practice mindfulness and do gratitude practices, but they became more engaged in their work. They started loving their work more. They reported getting more involved at work. And I just listening to you today, so you took Pausing with Purpose a few weeks ago, a month ago, and you're now the character ambassador, and you're excited about advisory and bringing these things in. And so it's something, when people practice on building their well-being, especially in the workplace, then it leads to employee engagement. And so I think if we can help people, adults, especially in education, I think the corporate world is really starting to do this more, and we're a little bit behind. But if educational leaders can focus on creating environments that focus on the why, that get adults in touch with why they're doing this work and their purpose. If you're good at crafts, then how can we bring crafts into the work? Like if you're good at being really social and greeting people, how can we incorporate that part into your job? And so bringing people's passions so they feel valued, they have the opportunity to use their strengths every day. They feel safe in their environment. All of those things lead to well-being with PERMA, positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement.
Yeah.
But they also lead to all the things that make us better at work and better at what we do. And in education in particular, that means better for kids.
Yeah.
So that's that. That's how I got it. And then I just, and I love Martin Seligman. So Marty, if you're watching, I don't know, I got to meet you. My boyfriend. So anyways, thank you so much for being here, Chelsea. I'm excited
Thank you.
more from you, especially in the Becoming Better Educators Thrive Tribe. I'll be looking for posts about all the cool things that you're doing in your classroom. And we just appreciate your passion for kids and just your resilience. Thank you for being here.
Yeah. Thank you.
And for the rest of you, I need to know your story. So don't make me hunt you down. Just message me. It's very good for you to share your story. And if it touches one person, then it's worth it. So have a great rest of your Saturday. Peace out.